Peace be upon you. So, one of the verses in the Quran that's often butchered in translation and interpretation is Surah 2, verse 223. And let's read some of the traditional Sunni translations from this. So, according to Muhammad Asad, he translates this verse: Your wives are your tilleth. Go then unto your tilleth as you may desire. But first provide something for your souls, and remain conscious of God, and know that you are destined to meet Him, and give glad tidings unto those who believe. And it's this first expression, this first sentence, that it says, Your wives are your tilleth. Go then unto your tilleth as you may desire. So let's look at Mustafa Khattab. This is the Clear Quran translation. I'm just going to read that first sentence. It says, Your wives are like farmland for you. So approach them consensually, he has it in brackets, as you please, and send forth something good for yourselves. So slightly better. Let's go to another one. It says, Your wives are a field for you. So go into your fields however you want, and do beforehand all that is necessary, being fully mindful of God and knowing that you will meet Him. Unfortunately, these translations have been severely polluted by being interpreted through the lens of Hadith, where wives must sexually submit themselves to their husbands or risk being cursed by the angels and eternal hell. So according to Bukhari 3237, we have such narrations as this. So this is narrated by Abu Huraira, that he claims the Messenger of God said, If a husband calls his wife to his bed for sexual relations and she refuses and causes him to sleep in anger, the angels will curse her till morning. So consider, the Sunni masses consider Bukhari as the second most authentic book in the history of mankind. They believe that this is divine revelation given to the Prophet, that it is the wife's duty to submit to her husband's sexual desires at any moment he does ask, otherwise she risks being cursed by the angels till morning. Saying that if you don't do this on a regular basis, not only are you going to get cursed, you're eventually going to go to hell. Now, these individuals take this distortion and they insert this in the interpretation of the Quran. And this is so horrendous on so many levels, because one, not only is it just distorting the words of God, but how many untold number of women have been oppressed because of this gross interpretation? Now, the major error in the above translations and the interpretation is that it frames its relationship between a husband and a wife as one in which the wife's primary function is only a source of pleasure for the husband. In this context, it subjugates the women and absolves the men of any responsibility, allowing them to seek pleasure from their women in any way they desire. And as we're going to see, this is the complete reverse of what the verse is actually stating. So God willing, let's try to understand this verse in light of the Quran alone. So to start, let's look at the first 7 words of this verse, and specifically the word in Arabic of Harth, which is used twice in these 7 words. In the translations we read, this word was translated as a tilleth, a farmland, and a field. And this word can be translated in these different ways, and depending on which definition one chooses, it will heavily influence the message that's being conveyed. If we try to understand this word using the Quran alone, what we see is that this word, in its derivative forms, occurs 14 times in the entire Quran, and it's used in the following ways. Twice in the Quran, it's used in the context of a farmland or a field, and this is in Surah 2, verse 71, and 21, verse 78. One other times, it's used as to sow or a place to plant seeds, and that's in Surah 56, verse 63. 3 times it's used in the Quran in the context of crops. This is Surah 6, verse 136, verse 138, and Surah 68, verse 22. And then the remaining 4 instances is in the context of a harvest, and this is in Surah 2, verse 205, Surah 3, verse 14 and 117, and Surah 42, verse 20. A common theme across all these examples is that the word Harth is a place where one sows and works hard in the hope of future rewards. Farmland, crops, sowing, and harvesting are not passive endeavors where someone just sits back idly and just obtains benefits without continuous hard work and investment. An interesting example of this word It's found 3 times in the verse 42:20. And it reads, "Whoever seeks the harvest, the rewards of the hereafter, we multiply the harvest for him. And whoever seeks the harvest of this world, we give him therefrom. Then he receives no share in the hereafter." So this is indicating to us that however we translate this word, the meaning of this word is not just passive income. It's not just reaping benefits. It requires toil. It requires hard work. It requires investment, something from the individual in order to be able to obtain these rewards. If we look at the next section of the verse, we see that it conveys, again, this aspect of some sort of future returns that individuals work for. And this is conveyed in the Arabic where it reads, "Waqadimu," this is translated as what is set forth, "la'anafsakum," for your souls. The root of the word waqadimu is used 48 times in the Quran and is typically associated with the deeds and actions that one sets forth. And we'll see this expression used in the following verse. This is Surah 73, verse 20. It says, "Your Lord knows that you meditate during 2/3 of the night, or half of it, or 1/3 of it, and so do some of those who believed with you. God has designed the night and the day, and He knows that you cannot always do this. He has pardoned you. Instead, you shall read what you can of the Quran. He knows that some of you may be ill, others may be traveling in pursuit of God's provisions, and others may be striving in the cause of God. You shall read what you can of it and observe the contact prayer salat and give the obligatory charity zakat and lend God a loan of righteousness." And this is the section I want to highlight. It says, "Whatever good you send ahead on behalf of your souls, you will find it at God far better and generously rewarded. And implore God for forgiveness. God is forgiver, most merciful." The theme of this verse is very cut and dry. God is advocating for us to work hard in the cause of righteousness. This is not a passive endeavor. We are not just sitting back and earning credits from God. It requires us to perpetually, continuously be striving to earn good deeds. And if we go to the last sentence of Surah 2, verse 223, it reads, "You shall observe God and know that you will meet Him. Give good news to the believers." So when we tie all this together, what we see is that planting seeds and harvesting signify that these efforts will lead to a future outcome in the form of a harvest. This means this is not a passive activity that men get to simply enjoy, but an act that requires hard work, investment, and cultivation. So when it reads, "Your women are bearers of your seed, thus you may enjoy this privilege however you like, so long as you maintain righteousness. You shall observe God and know that you will meet Him. Give good news to the believers." That this is implying that the women are an investment for the men, that they must treat this investment, this harvest, with respect, that the onus is on them, that they cultivate this blessing from God accordingly, just like God gives land to the human being. But if they don't treat it with respect, if they don't put in the due diligence, the hard work to reap the benefits, and constantly reflect on God to make sure that the deeds that they're doing is going to sit well in the eyes of God, then they're not going to get the benefits that they're hoping for. The way the traditionalists make this verse out to be is that the women are there simply for the men's enjoyment, that at any beck and call that they must come to their demands. And this makes the women the ones who have onerous based on their interpretation of this verse. But God is telling us the opposite, that as men, we are the ones who bear this responsibility, that we are the ones who must treat this blessing from God with respect, to do the due diligence, the hard work, to make sure that it gives us a productive harvest. Now, women hold a pivotal role as the bearers of seeds of humanity, with their offspring representing the harvest that will reflect the actions and deeds of the men and women who join together to produce them. A society founded on righteousness will tend to have righteous children, while a society founded on wickedness will tend to lead to a society in turmoil. And this is what's reflected on the individual, that if they observe God and serve as righteous examples for their children, they will reap the benefit. And if they don't, they will suffer the consequences. It reads in Surah 71, verse 26 and 27, says, Noah also said, My Lord, do not leave a single disbeliever on earth. For if you let them, they will only mislead your servants and give birth to nothing but wicked disbelievers. Women's capacity to give birth and nurture their offspring essentially seeds tomorrow's social and cultural landscapes. In this profound role, women act as stewards, shaping future generations through the deep values they instill and the attentive care they administer. Husbands are responsible for protecting and supporting their wives, recognizing that the well-being of women directly impacts the righteousness of future societies. By ensuring the health and safety of women, men are not merely acting out of companionship, but are actively investing in the moral and ethical fabric of their collective future, and striving so that the deeds they send forth will reflect positively on them on the day of judgment. In Surah 2, verse 110, it reads, You shall observe the contact prayer salat and give the obligatory charity zakat. Any good you send forth on behalf of your souls, you will find it at God. God is seer of everything you do. When husbands understand that their relationship with their wives transcends mere sexual gratification and enters the realm of a mutual endeavor akin to a harvest requiring careful cultivation, this realization should profoundly transform their perspective. Recognizing that their marital bonds is an ongoing commitment to nurture and develop, much like a farmer tends to his fields, husbands are called to invest thoughtfully and consistently in their relationship with their spouses. This shift in mindset underscores the importance of their wives and the relationship itself, framing it not as a source of mere pleasure, but as a critical, collaborative venture with far-reaching implications. Such a perspective enriches the marital bonds, promoting a deeper, more fruitful union that benefits both spouses and future generations. These individuals who twist the interpretation of the Quran and the translation of the Quran to suit their interpretation from these false narrations of Hadith are exposing the wickedness in their hearts. God willing, let's read the Quran with a pure mind, with sincerity, and not be biased by these false fabrications attributed to the Prophet. God willing, we're going to end there. If you guys want to get in contact, you can join us on our Discord server. We have lively debates, discussions, Quran recitation, and it's a great place to meet like-minded individuals. If you want to follow along the verses of the Quran, you can download the Quran Study app on the iOS App Store. If you don't have an iOS device, you can go to QuranStudyApp.com website. If you want to get notes from today's discussion or articles on other topics, you can go to the Quran Talk blog website. And if you want more regular updates, you can follow me on Twitter at Talk Quran. Until next time, peace and God bless.